GC Busan went from being a promising and competent South Korean amateur Overwatch team in OGN's Apex Challenger division to winning the coveted Apex Season 4 title in the blink of an eye. However, what if one of the only Royal Roaders to ever compete and actually win in Overwatch never shocked the world? What if the team that ended up joining Cloud9 Kongdu never had their rise to prominence? What would the world of competitive Overwatch look like if GC Busan never won Apex Season 4? First, we actually have to go back and look at who GC Busan were at the time. They were very clearly among the top of their graduating class in Apex Challenger, but they were very clearly not the best team. In the first group stage, GC Busan advanced undefeated, giving Luxury Watch Red, their rivals at the time, their only loss. Now, as we progressed into the second phase of group play, the opposite ended up happening, where Luxury Watch Red became undefeated and gave GC Busan their only loss as they went into Super Week. And due to the fact that no Western teams would be invited for Apex Season 4, they were immediately granted a seed. So it was very clear that they were very good, but out of all of the teams, they really didn't have the flair that we know them to have, going into the playoffs and ended up winning against Runaway in a crazy best of 7 series. At the time, they were still pretty new, pretty, green. They were still looking and trying to find their style. Drescher and Prophet weren't the duo that we know them to be today back in Apex Challengers. Now, as we advance into the Apex proper, we have Group C, where GC Busan has to face off against LW Red once again, and they're joined by Afrika Freaks and a little team called Rox Orcas, who you might remember from Striker and Giguri and Aid from the Toronto Defiant. And it was in this group that the team in general didn't find as much success as we would expect looking back on them with hindsight. They end up advancing out of Group C, but as the second seed, compared to LW Red advancing as the first seed and going undefeated, only dropping 3 total maps. But this is where a key development seemed to have happened with GC Busan. They go into Group B in the second phase of group play, and they look lights out, completely different. This is the GC Busan that many people look back fondly on. They go up against the defending 2-time champion Lunatic High and beat them 3-0 both times to advance into the playoffs. And yes, you've heard that correctly. Lunatic High did not win a single map against GC Busan, which was completely unheard of. This was a world-shattering, paradigm-shifting event where a rookie team coming in from the lower division was succeeding against 10-yeared Apex veterans. This was the team that we remember in hindsight. But for the sake of the story, let's go back. Let's go to the end of Group C. GC Busan is still a very, very good team at the time, and undoubtedly they would probably still beat Afrika Freaks and the Rox Orcas and still lose to LW Red. But what if they didn't level up to the degree that they did in Group B? Let's say that they don't beat Lunatic High twice, and they don't advance in the playoffs, and they don't have this crazy storied run. What does Overwatch look like? What does the Overwatch League look like now that we have to question the history of one of the best tanks in the world in Gesture and one of the best players to ever touch the game and potentially one of history's greatest players in Prophet? We have to go back into Apex Season 4 and we have to omit possibly his playoff MVP accolade. We have to go into Overwatch League Season 1 and question, well, if you weren't going to be on London Spitfire, would you have even made grand finals to actually win the season playoff MVP award? Everything now kind of comes into question without GC Busan winning Apex Season 4. You can take this even further going to the next event that they would have won in normal history in our timeline. APAC 2017 didn't have a ton of talent there. It was a very large event in general, but the playoff talent wasn't super strong, let's say. And if GC Busan doesn't have their level up like they do in Apex Season 4 to win the entire thing, do they actually win APAC? I'm inclined to say that they don't, and Runaway ends up actually having a fantastic performance like they probably would have in Apex Season 4 if GC Busan doesn't succeed as much as they have currently. There's a chance that Runaway actually has a beautiful run going into the Overwatch League, building a lot of confidence that may have wavered along the way. Maybe they win Apex Season 4. Maybe they win APAC. And they go on to have a lot of momentum going into events that didn't end up playing out in Runaway's favor. Do they bomb out of the Nexus Cup 2017 finals and lose against Vici Gaming of all teams? Do they lose against LGD in the Overwatch Team Story Chapter 4 tournament? Everything starts to change when we see GC Busan not actually perform as well as they did in the Apex Season 4 finals. There's a possibility that without GC Busan standing in their way, Runaway could have even started their dynastic run as early as October of 2017, nearly 2 years before, current day. And that's where I want to pose a question to you all, because I'm still undecided on this one myself. If Runaway actually won both Apex Season 4 and APAC Premier 2017, would they have started one of, if not the biggest dynasty in Overwatch history? And how would that affect the Overwatch League? Let me know down in the comments and on Twitter what you guys think, because I'm actually pretty interested. Again, I'm not entirely too sold on this either way. And this leads to ramifications for the players as well. If they don't have their stretch of success, do they get signed as a whole team with C9 Kongdu to make London Spitfire? I highly doubt it. If anything, they have ties to their coaching staff to Seoul Dynasty. I think Hokuri signed with them a little later than the entire roster was moved over, but I'm assuming there was probably talks behind the scenes happening months or maybe even weeks in advance. So possibly maybe we see Wooyall on Seoul Dynasty earlier, and perhaps maybe not Zephyr. Where exactly do Profit and Gesture go? Again, I think people were very keen on their talent, especially within the finals, but if that doesn't happen, are they diamonds in the rough that people actually have to go out and scout? Do they end up on a team that you wouldn't normally expect? Maybe a Gladiators, maybe an NYXL potentially. Then you've got, some of the lesser players moving to Kongdu. Maybe Hureg or Hagopyeon don't necessarily jump into the Overwatch League right away. Maybe they play an extra season in Contenders, which again, then kind of butterfly affects everything, right? Now you have to change up how the Shanghai Dragons in 2019 actually have to rebuild. Now you have to change what kind of stories you have coming out of Korean Contenders with Kongdu not necessarily having the exact same roster. Let alone, we have to obviously have to talk about the London Spitfire and how that whole roster would not have been injected with Cloud9 Kongdu. I think a lot of their inconsistencies came from two very, very powerful rosters being thrown together, and there not being enough stage time for some of these big personalities like your Fissures, like your Rascals. A lot of these players found very high degrees of success on other teams, but what ends up happening if you don't have all of that drama necessarily at the beginning of the season? Maybe you're a little bit more consistent. Do you end up winning the entire league? I think that's up for debate, but there's reason to believe that maybe London could have been better with a more simple roster. I mean, this is still a Birdring, Rascal, Fissure, Void, Waka Waka, Badoshin. That's just your 6 players, and you'd probably have to add at least 2 more to meet the 8-player minimum, but maybe they're not as inconsistent as they would have been. They're obviously much less powerful, they're less punchy, but you don't need to be if you're more consistent. You don't need to rely on the Profit and Gesture and Birdring mechanics just outright to win games if you're just more consistent. You have a better foundation. So everything changes with GC Busan if they don't necessarily pop off in Apex Season 4. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, and leave a like, comment, and subscribe, all that YouTube nonsense. And check out the Twitter. I always leave thoughts and feelings on esports in general. So I hope you guys like this video, and let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about. So thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.